All right, we are live. And let's see if we get anybody to come in here.
Yeah, it might take a minute, but somebody join in. Somebody's out there at 9:02 in the night.
I mean, if not, they could always go back and see it. It's not a problem.
That's true. That's true.
So, I mean, so what is your take on this tournament stuff? To be honest, I mean, we don't have to go with depth because nobody
Yeah,
needs to know.
yeah.
I just want people to have fun and fish the tournament and have a good time.
No, yeah, no, I think that's a legit question, man. I think you understand where I come from. We just had a League of Anglers and we got into some some deep shit. But to be honest with you, like it really has to have standards, I think, for me. And but at the same time, when we're talking with our snakehead community, which is a very niche community, we're talking about what a lot of snakehead guys don't understand, or what they should understand, is that snakehead are a population that is collaborated in a certain region, just like walleye, just like muskie, just like pike in the northern region. So there are all these different species of fish that are congratulated in certain regions of the world, and they're very compartmentalized. And you can't compare them to what you see in the other fishing world, which is the largemouth bass community. And the largemouth bass community is worldwide. So
Yeah,
that is reachable. That's a fish that you can catch from an earthworm under a bobber to
I've seen them on corn. I've
yeah,
seen a little girl on a little Barbie fishing pole with a piece of corn on there, throw it out and caught a largemouth. I mean, that's just what it is. But
right, man. So
right,
like
right
you
place,
get
right
this,
time.
this perception of catching a fish, which is usually related to the largemouth bass,
Yeah,
to all these other species, and I think that's kind of a little bit wrong. And even for the snakehead community, which is a very niche community, even though it's now reaching what 7 states now here in the mid Atlantic. Um, what we have to understand is that there has to be some control as far as tournaments. If you're going to have a tournament, you have to understand that a guy that's catching one in the northern version, the northern region of Pennsylvania or New Jersey, is going to be completely different than the guy that's catching a snakehead at that same specific time of day in Virginia, in Southern Virginia, right? Because you're
yeah.
talking miles of distance. You're talking about weather changes. You're talking about water temperature difference. So for me, it's hard to compete with someone that, unless I accept it, that I'm competing with someone in a completely different state, a completely different region, in a tournament that's virtual, for that same species. So it would be the same for any species, but that's my first kind of initial kind of throw out there for you, Rashawn, on what this really is.
I'm with you. I mean, because I know they were trying to do. Let's just think about it. A lot of guys up here don't want to work. We'll take an example. A lot of guys up here don't want to fish. Uh, if we did opened up a tournament, say we did a big tournament statewide, like Eastern Coast, East Coast, they're not gonna want to compete against in a bass tournament with people up north, with people down south because the fish
Yeah.
is just bigger. Because they feel like, oh, we can't compete with that. So could that be the same thing with certain things? Like we can't compete against bullseye. There's no way. You can't do that with a bullseye with a snakehead or any other fish. So I agree with you on standard. Like it just be the standard. We just a lot of stuff has happened. Just in general. Just not with us, but just with the tournaments in general. But we learn from that and we correct the mistakes. Whether the people
Right.
follow on board with us and learn because nobody's perfect. When you do something for the first time, and you just grow off of the next thing. That's why we have those little after action reports or whatever. I'm speaking military if y'all don't know, but just a little report so you can fix what the problem is, so you have a better turnout. The goal for fishing is to have fun, compete, and just you're fishing with your friends. So it's like me and you fishing a tournament. We launch in the same spot, but we're fishing against each other. We launch in the same spot. We're still fishing with each other.
That's right.
Granted, now if he's hating on you because you caught like a 30-inch bass or 50-inch snakehead, I'm just using these numbers as an example, then that's not your friend. When you're out there, you got each other's back. Oh, I forgot this. Here, man, take this chatterbait.
That's right.
But that's the purpose of fishing, especially for fishing with family. I'm getting off about the tournament a little bit. People have to understand fishing was the way to bring people together, because not everybody fishes kayak. For example, if you go to these little places and you go to the park, you see their mom and their dad or uncle or cousin fishing with sitting on a bucket. Got the bucket turned upside down or got the lid on it, and you're fishing together. I mean, that's what fishing's about. I learned that way. I would tell you, I fished with my Uncle Peter. He took me fishing all the time. That's where I learned.
Yeah, that's absolutely has to be considered. That that's how we all grew up fishing. I think I mentioned that earlier in our big group talk with tonight. Was we're all bank fishermen in at heart, because that's where we all started. I don't care where you come from. You probably threw your first bobber with a worm, with a live earthworm on the end of it from a bank. And if you did it from a boat, then you were special, because the rest of us did it from a bank. And absolutely, you have to consider, the grassroots of what we're talking about when it comes to fishing. And I think a lot of, and I'm not trying to insult our snakehead community at all, by no means, because by no means do I think I'm the best snakehead fisherman because I fish a lot. Because I think there are some grassroots guys that just started fishing, have probably caught some of the biggest snakehead in our North Atlantic, mid-Atlantic region. So when I say this, I'm not by no means trying to insult anybody, but I'll tell you, like, a lot of those guys that have come out of the woodworks and have been snakehead fishing, in my opinion, are new fishermen, and they're doing it from the bank. And that's why it's close to my heart, just like I know it's close to your heart, because I hear you earlier today, how, we can't let those guys out that fish from the bank. They can't afford a kayak. They can't afford that bass boat. I completely understand that.
Yeah, they can't afford the gear as well. I mean,
that's right.
So I'm gonna bring this out to you since we're talking about this, folks. So you don't have to be a good fisherman. You don't have to have the best stuff. I mean, you would want quality stuff because you want to last, and you don't want to keep going out. Because right now, with gas prices and everything, we ain't got it. I mean, but you could get a good, decent combo from Walmart and fish and catch fish.
Absolutely,
it's not a problem.
Yes.
And don't let anybody discourage you if you're trying to get into fishing. Don't let anybody discourage you from fishing because they got this $300 rod and reel, or the line that glows in the dark and it seems like it catches fish. You have to be. Not everybody can catch fish. You just got to know what to do to catch the fish at the right time. Now, live bait is a totally different story because it's just sitting there and it's like an opportunity for fish. I'm not trying to be funny, but the guys that you fish with night crawlers, you're going to catch fish. You might not catch the biggest fish, but you're going to catch fish off a worm.
Yep.
Or catch the fish off a minnow.
Yep.
So I don't want anybody to ever think that when you're fishing and you're not catching fish, that is you. It could be something you're using. You just reading a little bit and understanding stuff will help you get a better fisherman. And it doesn't hurt to ask people questions. Granted, you got some dicks out there that don't want to help you. Period. Yep. But the thing is that you guys fishing need to, how do you explain this? Keep an open mind and make your choices that you think is going to work best for you. If you know what I mean.
No, that's a great point, because you have to have a good time and you want to be able to enjoy yourself out there if you're going to go fishing. So if you're a new fisherman and you're just going to go wing it, you're not going to ask anybody for any help or any information. You want to go out and have a good time. And so to Rashawn's point, that's exactly it. You want to be able to go out there, not spend a lot of money, not spend a lot of, and especially if you have a family and you want them to experience catching a fish, you really put a lot more anxiety and effort into it. I know I always did. A lot of times when I had my kids out there, my two boys, it was more anxiety for me to them to catch fish than it was for me to ever catch a fish. Like it was just tough. So it was like almost if I had unlimited funds, I would give them everything I could just so they would experience the feeling and that experience of catching a fish, just so it, not to maybe hook them, but maybe to hook them and then want to do it again.
Because I've seen people fishing. Like when I fished in Stansbury at the park, and I watched people come out there. It's my first time fishing, and then the kids catch the fish and they're like freaking out, like, I caught a fish, and they don't want to touch it.
Yeah.
So, but that's the gateway.
That is
the little bluegill that Joe talks about. That little crappie, that little person swimming around, or bass that's always by the dock. That's the gateway to fishing, and being the gateway, it will help. If you don't take it seriously, and that being a gateway, it will help you relax because you're just out there. Because if you're out there, you have a peace of mind. You're just chilling. Some people don't take it that way. That's just life. But I know when I'm out there and I don't catch a fish, and I'm sitting there, or if I'm sitting there with Steve, just talking junk to him, I'm cool. You know what I'm saying? It's my buddy Kevin and Tommy. I talk junk. We all talk junk to each other because we're having fun. But that's what it's about. Building that relationship with your friends, your family, and everything else. So that camaraderie building with teams and stuff like that, when everybody's fishing together and all that, that's me. I don't care if I don't catch a fish at all. You know what I mean? I got skunked plenty of times, but I was there with people. And some people like myself, I deal with PTSD. Other people have other issues.
Yep.
That's my getaway.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, I've got a couple of moments that I've recently expressed on social media that, and I've told you this several times. You know, I'm new to social media and I'm new to expressing and letting myself out there to the world, because that platform is there now. You know, that wasn't there in my generation growing up. So now that I'm a little bit older and now that platform is there, I don't think it's unnatural for me to lynch onto it because I'm not young. And I'll tell you that, Rashawn, just like what you said, man, like some of the best experiences that I've had on the water with my fishing partners, and you know all of them, you're friends with all of them, actually friends with all of them before me. I tell you, brother, those are the best experiences I could ever have. And it wasn't to be on a kayak where it was just me and my kayak, because the kayak is an individual platform. It's made for one person. It's not made for multiple people.
Yeah.
So a person that chooses to fish from a kayak usually is a person that's introverted and wants to do something on his own. But I can tell you, man, some of the best experience I've had is when I was with my friends next to me on their kayak and we caught together. We double up or some shit like that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like, I remember last year, man, it was the three of us. It was Adam, it was Steve and myself, and we were fishing. And Steve and Adam doubled up, and I missed the fish, so I was trying to triple up. And then me and Steve doubled up, and that same thing with my buddy Kevin, same thing with Tommy. And then you had it. I fished with Joel and Elmer, but I didn't double up with them at the same time. It was just like somebody caught it from there and somebody there. So it's cool, man. You get the picture because you see that one picture everybody talk about. Oh, you see Rashawn and Steve. That reminds me of the Friends video. That's like the funniest shit ever. But you know what I mean? Like, it's cool. I'm that's what it's about.
It is.
Because and I keep going over it. It's like this creating that memory and this building, making your friendship stronger with anybody, not to mention family. Now, I was watching the other day, it was around the corner from my house. There was people out there fishing, and they were out there with their daughter and their son fishing, try to catch perch. I don't think it was they were there, but they were there. Like the people were there. They were enjoying themselves, and then they left. I mean, just a smile, it could
Yeah,
it could make your day. Because I
it
know,
does.
I have a bad day at work, and I'll be like, man, I'm going straight. I'll be talking to Steve. I was like, where I'm going. And then I don't catch nothing, but I was sitting out there just chilling and just watching this eagle fly around and try to eat some of the geese.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I'm completely with you, man. Like, especially with family. Like, so I got a brand new 15-year-old and a brand new 13-year-old who's about to turn 13.
Mm.
And both those boys, some of my best memories, as many fish as I've caught, and as many outings as I've had by myself, and have had great days, and I've captured them on social media. Those memories have no comparison to watching them catch fish, and just because I taught them the technique, or I taught them what to do, or I told them, or I just handed them the reel, right, or handed them the reel and the rod, was enough to have that up here. It'll never go away, and it'll always be that perfect scenario for me to remember. And yeah, you'll never let that go. But you're absolutely right. Like, being with friends and family is 100% the best part about fishing. I can't tell you. I mean, tournament fishing, you can talk about big catches, you can talk about all of those things all you want, but at the end of the day, catching fish with your family and friends next to you and laughing or crying or making fun of each other or whatever it is always going to be the best memory and the most healing and soulful memory that there is.
Yeah, man. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
So, we'll see how this year goes with fishing. Everybody's watching. You need to make sure you watch us. We're not getting off yet. We probably give it another 10 minutes, but
yeah.
me and Joe was talking about this, and we're probably going to do a lot more lives. It might be random, or we might plan them. The Legion will have their live when we plan that, but I know a lot of people want to interact and hear stuff, and we'll probably go over some gear and stuff. Joe's fishing kayak bass fishing this year, and so is Jonathan. And then we got Steve doing the snakehead tournaments, and you got Tommy doing his gear reviews when he's not busy with work, and then you got Adam about to show you a whole bunch of craft of stuff that you could do at home when you can't go nowhere. So you need, and you got RS22 giving you fishing channels.
Yep.
You got Joel and Elmer. They're doing their thing with the salt, which you guys are doing the same thing too. It's about to be a good year, so everybody needs to follow us. And I'm not now. Let's. I don't want to say just us. Follow the Legion and the members, and then we'll go to about you got other people that's doing stuff too. I don't want to plug this, but some of you guys, no, I'll do plug it. I'm not gonna. I'll leave that one alone. You got Snakehead Life. Everybody has their ups and downs and what they've been, but it's not a bad group. I'm posting there a lot, and it is what it is. It's not the group itself; it's the people that's in the group that makes the groups. If you understand, so if you have a bad attitude in the group, you're gonna make the bad attitude. Now, the moderators don't have bad attitudes, and now, if you think you're the greatest fisherman on the face of the earth, that's you. But don't bring that negativity to the Legion. I'm gonna tell you, don't bring it to the Snakehead Life because I talked to them. They're gonna kick you out. Don't bring the Frog Eaters. Who else is out there? You got Westside Snakes. You got Blackwater's Edge. You got the Rappahannock group. There's groups everywhere that you can get a lot of knowledge from good people. So if you run into a bad person that's in the group, just blow it off. There's other people in the world they're gonna help you out. I think I put that right.
No, I think you did. No, I think what Rashawn is saying is that, don't let social media control your fishing expeditions and your desires and your love for what you're doing, because just let it be kind of a sideshow of it, because that's really what we're trying to do. We're not trying to make this, if you're a fisherman, you have to be part of this type of group. It's not that at all. I truly have I truly have been part of the Legion of Anglers for a short time because I believe that what these guys are doing and what we're doing together is really going to be something that's positive towards just being a community rather than being a fishing competition. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, because
A lot of times fishing becomes competition, and it really shouldn't be about that, because I think in the world we're in today, Rashawn, and you know this, bro, because you're just old enough. You're just a tad bit younger than me, but you're probably old enough to know that a lot of this fishing information was not available like it is today. And not all of you would have been as good as fishermen as you are now if it weren't for technology. Because
let's talk about that.
Yeah, because you had to have an uncle, you had to have a grandpa, you had to have a dad, or a grandma, or a auntie that gave you a tip on where that hole was or what lure worked in that lake.
So, for example, I learned this fishing with Tommy on his boat because I didn't know. I mean, I did know, but I didn't know. I didn't know they used them for a lot. The birds, that was our fish. That was the fish finder back in the day, right? That was you. So those y'all that don't have a fish finder, you see some birds. Hey,
that's your fish finder.
That's something right there.
That's right.
I mean, we didn't have they didn't have like these 360 and everything else. Like I had the active target. They didn't have that back in the day.
No. And and it was funny is because a lot of these old time, and we'll go back to bass, kind of the bass scene, because, and you can relate because I know you follow the bass scene and you're kind of a lure geek like me.
Yeah, got shit right here now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's nonstop what that puzzle piece is going to be when it comes to putting the puzzle together for bass. And if you follow that scene back when we were younger, before internet information, the technology information was even just as shitty because you didn't have the graphs that you have today. And they
didn't even have the kayaks they had today. You remember?
Oh, exactly. Like a fishing kayak wasn't even an invention until 2006 or 7. So, and it wasn't even that great then. It wasn't until about 2012 that they actually were something that actually added to you fishing. So,
don't even want to get into the sit because they were all sitting, and I got into one, and I was like, went over. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not getting in this.
Yeah. There's a lot. We could turn this into several different broadcasts, so we won't even get into that. But I'll tell you that I just in general, just having the knowledge of how to catch fish, where to catch fish. I'm going to emphasize that where to catch fish is more important on how you're catching fish, because if there's no fish there, it doesn't matter what you throw at them because there's no fish there. You're throwing at nothing. So how to catch fish and where to catch fish are two different things. And I'll tell you that back in the day before internet information was exposed, where to catch fish was very hard to get. That information was very hard to get.
But nobody wanted to take, because one, they didn't want to give their spots. Spots back then was like, they didn't want to give it up. The only way, like, you would drive down the road, you'd be in the car, and then you'd be like, oh, look at these guys fishing on the side of the road. And he's like, that's what it was. I remember that growing up in the 80s. That's how it was. It's like, oh, right. And then people go fish around each other. Back then, I don't really remember anybody arguing. It's like, oh, you catch anything? Yeah, we caught these, and you mind we fished? No, not a problem. Now, let's talk about Blackwater. You go down to Blackwater, and you try to go fish. Man, it's like, get away from me. Like, dude, it's like 50 feet. Like, you know what I mean? And you got to stand next to me. Like, I was fishing with my buddy Kevin, and these two guys come right between us. Like, we literally was like 5 feet, and the lines was in the water, threw over, and they got snagged. I mean, karma is karma, but you know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of other space. I don't have a problem because I'm the one trying to catch the fish. So if we catch the fish at the same time, if the fish hits the lure, then it is what it is. But be respectful, ass. You know what I mean? Don't be just, oh yeah, like, yeah. It's crazy. I swear.
Absolutely. Like, knowing where places to go. Like, fishing holes, like the word fishing hole or fishing spot. You know, those were secret. Those were almost like family heirlooms. Like people would like pass those out, just like family recipes for, you know, how to make biscuits or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's everyone has the information. Everyone knows where those spots and holes are because there's GPS, there's, you know, there's Navionics graphs, there's Google Earth. There's all kinds of information out there now. So it's almost like you don't even have an excuse unless you know how to catch fish using those things that are providing that information to you. So comparing it to when we were growing up, man, it's a completely different world. But at the same time, it's just as fun, I think, because it just adds another. I always call it puzzle pieces. It's just another puzzle piece to what I have to put together to figure out how to catch fish better than the next guy, and that's my personal challenge to me. And
so I'm gonna talk about that. So I only been down when we fished the tournament. It's not a secret. We fished the Snakehead tournament last year.
Yep.
I mean, when I fished these tournaments, I was only fishing with my buddy or my buddies. I was fishing with Kevin and Steve. I didn't care if I won or lost. I didn't really care, honestly. Because there was a whole bunch of other tournaments that I could have fished the prior years that they had, but I didn't really want to. I just didn't care. So I fished, and then I didn't catch anything. I wasn't mad. I was just fishing with my friends. But when we went down to the Snakehead Championship, I had to put in work. So I had to take everything that I learned over the years to figure out where the snake cost myself. You know what I'm saying? I don't like talk about it, but I cost myself my first place because I did something stupid. But it made me a better fisherman because I used all the knowledge that I had when I was younger to figure out where fish is at, how to fish them. Because I couldn't use my fish finder because it was just too much weeds and it was just too cluttered. So it's just to fish a certain area that I never fished before and to catch fish. That was an accomplishment to me. Whether I didn't finish third or not, I caught fish, and I was actually proud of myself. So that's why I was never really mad about it because I did something that I didn't think I could do. I mean, everybody's saying, "Oh man, you could fish." I didn't think that. I mean, I knew I could fish, but I didn't think I was like the greatest fisherman in the face of the earth, and I still don't. But my confidence went better because, like, oh, maybe if I do take my time and fish and not do this, and then we're all still learning from different people. Like you fishing with different people, you get different habits, and you just change them to conform them to your way. And then if it works, it works, and doesn't, then you change it. So
no, that's a great fisherman's point, regardless of what species you're targeting, because I'll make this statement in two parts. One, Rashawn is talking about what he did as far as finding fish, and in a tournament he made him a tournament mistake is why he didn't win. Because if he wouldn't have made that, and I won't expose it, but if he wouldn't have made that tournament mistake, which is technical, he would have won that tournament as a first place winner. Instead, he fell just short of that. But what he's talking about is that he took what his knowledge was from years of fishing and he applied it to an area that he was not familiar with, and he wasn't, wouldn't have been most successful with if he was in some place that he was known.
Because you got to think about it. People that go to an area that fish, they bring live bait, throw it out.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's just like, oh,
yeah,
chilling. Be on the phone, texting now. Back in the day, it was no texting. You was just out there fishing, and you was talking to somebody. Now you're texting, and you're getting phone calls, and you're playing a game on there if you're sitting on the bank. Now, if you're not throwing your lure. Now, if you're like us, throwing a lure fisherman, you don't have time to text. You answer the phone, you hit speaker, and you be like, yeah, all right, well, I got to call you back. I'm catching fish. You know what I mean? Right. I have to,
That's right.
You don't want to drop your phone in the water.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no time for, to just kind of chill out and look at your phone like you normally would throughout the day, even when you're in the most, I don't know, obscure places in work, when you're working really hard and you still have time to check your phone. That ain't happening when you're in the mix of catching fish. And I'll tell you, like, back to that moment when we were back here in Virginia at the Snakehead Challenge, when Rashawn was about to win and did win, except for a technicality. It is what it is. He didn't have time for that, and he uses his natural instincts to find those fish, which is, I think, which is great. But the second part of it is that when you come to new waters and you fish a place with new waters, and that's that part of that tournament fishing experience, is that you're going to get exposed to elements that you're not familiar with. It's not your home waters. It's not your home weather. It's not your home habitat where fish normally have a pattern. The patterns are going to change. You have to learn how to adapt, and you only do that through experience or education. And
trial and error.
Yeah, the difference now is you've got some guys out there can do enough education because of technology, because there's YouTube channels, there's information out there that they can learn from. Those are those uncles and grandpas and aunties that used to teach us stuff when we were kids. Any kid can pick up YouTube and just click it on and learn those things now.
So think about it. I fished. I have my YouTube channel. You're starting yours. Steve and everybody else has their on their team. We learned from somebody.
We did. Yep.
And these kids learned from somebody, and they started this stuff, and like, their parents took them out on boat and bass fishermen and everything, and they all learned. So now you can just go on YouTube and get some of that knowledge that was down there. Granted, some people just catch the fish and put a lure in their mouth and just say, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the ones that you see catching and they're giving you stuff, that's the stuff that you want to watch, because they're giving you the knowledge, and then they're giving you information, and they're doing stuff to help, preserve the sport and be mindful about what's going on with fish. Because when you're fishing, everybody's trying to catch all these fish and catching all these big fish and do all this other stuff and be like, but when you see these guys catch these big fish, they're putting it back in the water. Back in the day, it was catch this big fish, it was taking it out of the water, but there was enough of bigger fish out there at that time, way back in. It wasn't really that bad, unless they messed up the environment, because the environmental rules, and we won't get into that, was different than what it is different
now. So that's a whole nother conversation that we should probably do a cast on someday that talks about, so what was it like back in the 90s, and why were people catching and eating bass back then more than now? Because now it's not like really a big thing. You still have some old timers that still like.
Yeah, they do.
They're all over social media. Like, yeah, I eat the shit out of that.
But you know why?
8-pounder, right?
You know why?
You look at like the 30 or 20-year-old, you'd be like, what? You eating that thing? Because it's a generational thing, and
it's a money fish too.
And exactly, and it's not a necessity to eat everything you catch anymore, because of I don't know. We don't want you to get into that type of shit, but it really does come down to people make a little different money now. People are more exposed to how we gather food and things like that. But I'll tell you that the person that catches and eats an 8-pound bass in the 90s is because they grew up with a parent that grew up in the 50s. So we can, that's a whole nother different element, understanding of why harvest and catch and release is different now than it was back in the day.
I tell you what, let's talk about that next. Let's do something next week on that and try to run that. We'll figure out a random day to do it. Maybe a little earlier.
Yeah.
Because I know we still got people on, so I ain't mad. But I'm trying to figure out we touched a lot of the stuff, because a lot of the knowledge was passed down to these guys and stuff went out.
Yeah, I would at some point, man, I would love to give my experience on if you're going to get into the bass tournament stuff. I think that's a whole nother, I know down here in Virginia, we've got a lot of young guys coming up throughout the days. that are and then probably up there where you guys, kayak bass fishing is still on the cusp of growth. And it's just now getting to where people are really biting into. You've got three major tournaments. You got the bass scene, which is the BASS kayak scene, and you have the Hobie has a bass open scene, and you have KBF. Those are your three major bass kayak events that happen throughout the year. And then you have each state has their own ambassador groups, which are your local clubs, to include like the Legion of Anglers. That's really what we are. And I can tell you that if there's anything I can do with help understand how that goes, I will do that, because I'm going through it myself. And I'm trying to learn what's the best route to go with how many major events should you do? How much money should you invest? How much should you just stick around your local clubs? Is it more financially viable to stick around and make money around your local clubs than it is to do the big events? All of those things are questions that I know are happening with other anglers out there, because that's the type of stuff that happened to me. So I would love to share that with you, Rashawn, and all of your viewers at some point, because I think it's a good point of contention, because bass fishing is, and you know this, brother, bass fishing is bass fishing, man. Bass fishing is the culmination. It's the culminating event of fishing. I don't care what you think about inshore fishing. I don't care what you think about other species fishing, multiple species fishing. Largemouth bass are always going to be the targeted fish, because you can reach them worldwide, and you can do that. You can reach them with multiple patterns. It's what the largemouth bass unique. The other fish are very one-dimensional, and not saying that you can't be a great redfish guy or a great snakehead guy or a great pike guy. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if you want to be a great largemouth bass guy, you should be able to do that in California, in Alabama, in Japan, in Virginia. So to do that, so that's where the puzzle piece comes. And I'm not here to sell largemouth bass tournament fishing by no means, but I'm just saying that may be a misunderstanding with a lot of people when it comes to fishing.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So
to include like lures, man, like
So I'm glad. Let's talk about that before we get off. Lures. Right now, we're in Maryland, so the temperature doesn't know what it wants to be. It wants to be Arctic and then equator temperature in Maryland. I don't know. Like it's warm one day, but the bite right now, I know I'm going to say this for me for snakehead. If I was fishing for a snakehead, which I usually fish for snakehead the same way you would fish for bass, there ain't no change. I could use a swim bait. I'm gonna throw a MEPS inline, a chatterbait.
It's amazing.
A spinner bait, which I suck at catching fish on spinner bait. I watch everybody else catch fish on spinner bait. All the fish I've tried to catch on spinner bait, they only hit the blades. And I watched them. And then maybe a plastic worm. That's like the 5. I mean, and people are like, oh, you use the plastic worm for snakehead? Yeah, I mean, if you know they're there and you just flip it out there and you just, or crawl, especially a crawl. I've caught a lot on crawl.
Yep.
So just bouncing on the bottom because the weeds are not there. Now, some areas had weeds, so I don't know. You might catch a channel in there. Yeah. But that's what I'm using. I'm particularly throwing the chatterbait in the MEPS. Now,
you definitely want a reaction bait at this stage in the year. It would be
bait.
You want to try to get some type of reaction bait, because those snakehead are coming out of their winter kind of hibernation stage, and they're just wanting to eat. And a snakehead is a very reactionary type fish. They're not like a bass, where a bass throughout the season has different temperaments. sometimes they want to eat, sometimes they don't type shit. And with a snakehead, if you can get that fish to react, he'll bite. And that's what's kind of cool about a snakehead. And when they do bite, it's an extravaganza of spectacular things to happen, because it's just a show they put on.
Now, I mean to cut you off.
Yep.
For the guys that don't want to throw lures, minnows. Can't go wrong. If you want to catch snakehead or any other fish right now, minnow on a bobber.
Yeah. So
it works.
So I will always be like, I won't ever. I don't know, man. I throw a lot of live bait because I did a lot of fishing on the West Coast where you do a lot of live baiting, and it's a lot of fun. It's very consistent. You can catch a lot of fish on the West Coast with live bait, especially inshore.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, bro, like everyone here on the East Coast wants to kick you to the side like you're like a sideshow if you use live bait.
I mess with
that group, but
I've used it sometimes, but I always mess with Steve all the time and everybody else and Adam. But it is what it is. If you want to catch fish, you want to catch fish. I'm not going to tell you not to, because that's what's been using for years. But I just like the challenge to try to catch something.
Yeah.
Like in that weather. So I remember last year we went down. It was early March, and we went down to the Trans, and they caught some fish, and it was cold, and I caught mine on my pink maps on my pink pole. Yeah.
So cold. When you said cold,
not cold, but it was still 50s, getting better. It wasn't like
that's cold for me. Like anything 55 or below, it's cold.
Oh,
in my opinion. So if you're using live bait, you will not get any shit from me, because I think that sometimes you just got to go out there and catch fish. And am I going to sit there and jerk a jerk bait to catch a bass for 20 minutes?
You guys are strong forearms.
Exactly, right? Or am I going to throw a minnow out there for a bob?
So I ain't gonna lie. So while we're fishing the other day, I had that minnow set up, and then I threw a jerk bait. I threw the butt. I didn't catch not one thing on the minnow. I caught all the pickerel on a jerk bait.
Oh, see, you're proving me wrong, man. You're proving me wrong.
That's one of my favorite baits I've used in South Carolina when I was growing up, was a jerk bait. I threw a jerk bait all day, every day, nonstop. Didn't care. I had a sinking one, slow one, because it was a fish and it looked like it was dying. And I caught a bunch of bass, and that was it. But
yeah,
that's just me.
Jerk baits, I'll tell you, brother, and you know this. You've been around this shit long enough to know jerk baits and spinner baits have lost their space in like the tackle world, I guess, because those two baits still work today. If you're you throw a spinner bait in the right place at the right time, it's going to outshine even a chatterbait, and a chatterbait has taken the world over by storm.
But if you modify the chatterbait and add a little spinning thing on the back, a little blade, then you don't have to throw it. And you could throw a chatterbait farther and cover more water than you could do a spinnerbait.
Hey, anybody who's listening, I'm telling you, Rashawn knows what he's talking about when it comes to baits. This guy knows what he's talking about. That's exactly. Those are like secrets, bro. You're just like exploding out there. That's like.
Let's talk. I'm gonna try to push this a little bit. I like the chatterbait a lot during this time of the year. Even if it's not any grass area, I can fish the edge of it with chatterbait. I fished it down in Mattawaman on a chatterbait with a blade on the back of it. Just sit there with a hook keeper, and it would spin as it would go, and you can feel the vibration. Now I throw my chatterbaits on a glass rod only, and I use maybe 20 to 30 pound braid. Yeah, I mean I can use fluoro. My buddy Greg Hall tells me to use fluorocarbon, but I I hate fluorocarbon so much because I always be throwing it and it'd be like, poof, and I'd be like, ah. So I just use the lighter braid and sensitivity. But that flash to that to that chatterbait is insane, and it's just like, boom. They're not hitting the blade itself. So if you got the blade going across, they're just nailing the blade.
Yeah.
They're not getting that. So I mean that's for me. I mean I'm not gonna. That's my fishing. Everybody else has their own fishing. So I know people will throw like Brandon to throw his. He'll throw his SS Customs spinner bait just to shut me up. Be like, yeah, watch me catch this fish, and he'll catch it. Me and spinner baits, no. That and crankbaits. That spinner baits and crankbaits. I have.
Yeah, and it really comes back down to Rashawn. It really comes down back to what pattern the fish want. It's not whether the fisherman knows what they want. It's what the fish tell the fisherman what they want. And
you gotta match the hatch.
Oh, absolutely. There's no angler out there that's going to predict what any fish is going to want. I'm going to tell you that right now. They can tell you that, but they're shit. The fish are going to tell you what they want, and unless that angler is prepared and has the tackle in their arsenal to throw at them and figure that out when it's time, is really what it comes down to. And there's been many times I've thrown, all the fancy baits that have been. I mean, how many YouTube channels can you watch and tell you this is what you throw when this tells you to do this, right?
Yeah.
That answer. It's not like that. You can try that, and what's going to happen is the fish are going to tell you what they want. And then if you're smart enough angler, you're going to be able to figure out that's not what they want. They want this, because it even can come down to what retrieve you're doing with that bait or what speed or whatever the case may be. But so, yeah, I don't hang my hat on too much of what other people say. This is what I hang my hat on. But I'll tell you that there are certain patterns that work for certain fish in certain times of the year. And if you pay attention to those generalized understandings of what those patterns are, you're probably going to do pretty well.
It's like I did last year, like at the beginning of like February, end of February, beginning of March. I was throwing a swim bait. I caught bass and snakehead on the swim bait, and I made the hard swim bait, the jointed. It was like a 5-inch, huh?
Like a paddle tail?
No, it was a hard swim bait.
Oh, it was a hard. Oh,
yeah. Okay. I had a swim bait rod. I caught him on that, and then I also snagged carp too.
Oh shit! Are you serious?
Yeah, Steve got me on video with that. I need to. So if you see me, matter of fact, I caught maybe like 5 last year, snagged them by accident. But within that, within that little thing, there was other fish in there. I have put up snakehead and bass and catfish. They were there too, but maybe to the left or right of them, because at this time of the year they're all carp are like all together, like
yeah.
So yeah, man. I don't know, that the swim bait just worked pretty good for me. So
I'll tell you what, and we'll kind of get back on track with what's coming up. So what's coming up is snakehead are going to really start biting, even if you're a bass fisherman. So if you're out there bass fishing and you catch snakehead, this is what's going to happen to you. So I'm a huge fan of swim baits. So I don't always throw topwater, which is what's very popular here in Virginia. I'll throw a swim bait that swims about 1 inch to 2 inches below the surface.
That's my follow-up bait.
Yep. So I'll throw that out the gate before I will a topwater bait, even early morning, all that good stuff. But I'll tell you that what Virginia guys should worry about, and I don't know about where you're at, Rashawn, but is the gar are really heavy. Not carp. Carp are heavy too, but the gar are really heavy, and they'll hit those baits and they'll break you off. So
yeah, Yeah,
How to,
yeah.
to compensate for that other than going straight braid to my baits, which I've done over the years. But I still get broke off, believe it or not, on 30, 40-pound braid sometimes with carp. I'm not carp, but
Car.
with gar. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just give this 2 minutes. I'm gonna go over some lures. I got this. I'm just gonna go over some stuff. So people who's watching, you can go back. So to end this off, this is the new Z-Man. Wait, this way. Swim bait. I got this at Anglers, but you can get it anywhere else. It's got that little thing you can put any kind of weight underneath it or a blade. I can't wait to try this thing. I was hoping to try it tomorrow, depending on how things go. But
Yeah, that's killer.
this thing is awesome. So I'm not sponsored by Z-Man by any way, but I just looked at it. And another thing that I like too, and I'm gonna bring this up because I got it sitting up here, is the jackhammer
Always. Yep.
and the new Mini Max.
Mini Max.
Yeah. So
What's that? What's the difference in a Mini Max and a jackhammer, Rashawn?
the jackhammer is made by Evergreen, and the Mini Max is just one. The jackhammer looks like you could tell the difference. Well, one, this is you can see the eyes on it, and
Yeah,
hold on, let me go this way,
that's big. Yeah.
and it's made in Japan. It's like combined with Japan, but Evergreen's in Japan. So, and this Mini Max, the hook is smaller too. If you take a look, let's see. You can see the difference. It's a smaller profile chatterbait, pretty much. So if you
Yep.
got those finicky fish that want a smaller bait, that's not too small like the other Z-Man chatterbait, I would throw the Mini Max.
Yeah.
Now you can throw the Blade Waker, which is my favorite. But between the Blade Waker and the Z-Man chatterbait is the way to go. There's a lot. I think I own like every chatterbait. I need to start doing videos on them because I got different stuff like Depths makes them and a whole bunch of other stuff. And yeah, the Googan clickbait is really good too. It makes a lot of noise underwater because you can hear it go. So that's another good one.
Yeah, man. I haven't tried any Guggen stuff. I'll be honest with you. I just haven't because it seemed like another layer of of the same stuff that was already out there. But I've heard a lot of good information about the clickbait when it comes to different sound that it makes.
I caught redfish on it.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. There you go.
And I think that I'll throw one more thing for y'all, and then I'm gonna end it up because it's get 10 o'clock, and those people got to work in the morning. Not this particular bait in general, but any type of swim bait. I like this because it was just cool looking. But any type of swim bait that it mimics a fish that's jointed will work during this time of the year. Now, when the grass comes up, you ain't throwing that. And like Joe was saying, my follow up, I frog fish a lot, so I use a lot of teckle. I use the frog that makes a lot of noise, but when the grass is up, my follow on bait is some kind of swim bait, weedless, and I just throw it back over there and just drag it off the top. And I might just use it like that anyway, because if you notice when you are fishing and then in the grass areas with bass, snakehead, or any fish in the general area, there's minnows swimming through the grass.
That's right.
So it just looks natural.
Yeah.
And that's just going to bring that natural strike to it anyway, especially if it looks like a minnow and it's going across trying to get through the grass. It's like an opportunity for them. And it's like, oh, let's get this. So, you got anything else you wanted to say?
No, man. I would just say thanks for sharing your live with me today, man. I had a blast being here with you.
Well, technically, this is Legion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. But
I just figured I'd do it.
I wouldn't be here without you. So
yeah,
and I wouldn't do it without you. So if anything from my end is thanks for having me with you, brother. And I hope if anybody was listening, you picked up a few hints here and there. Maybe not all of them. Maybe some of them you thought we were full of shit. That's fine too. That's great. But if anything, man, let's get the community going, and I love being here with you, and maybe we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, so we're gonna pass this on real quick. We got tournaments coming up, and I know everybody's like, "Oh, they got a tournament coming up." It's gonna be better than it was. We gotta. So let's go over this right now on KBF. You don't have to be a member. I think you could just be an ambassador, which is the free membership. Kayak Bass Fishing is doing a tournament. It's a fun tournament. Catch 22, which is supporting veterans organization, and that would be something that we in the fishing community all across the United States need to get a part of. They're taking half the pros, or not half. I think they're taking most of the proceeds and donate it to a veteran organization, which I think Chad said it was going to be some Heroes on the Water. I think it is Heroes on the Water, and that'll help veterans like myself, Joe, people that don't have that opportunity to fish and try to deal with the issues they had from the military, and or don't have anybody. They have these programs. So that was something. So if you want to do something, you don't even have to. Maybe you could reach out to KBF, and you don't want to fish, reach out to KBF or reach out to us, and we'll donate on your behalf to any vet organization, which we're getting there. I don't want the money. I don't need it, but I know somebody else will get to that. It will get there.
That's right.
We'll have a charity tournament coming. Just stay tuned. A lot of good stuff coming. This team is for the community, and if you support us, that's the only way to make it bigger and grow. And I'm gonna leave it on that. So until then, ladies and gentlemen, and whoever else is watching,